Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us in another one of our APPI workshop webinars. Let me turn off Jim. I'm hearing you. Let me just unmute you here. Unmute you here. Today, the specific topic we'll be talking about is the now moment, precognition, and health. APPI has spent a lot of time working on finding and training and developing the best remote viewers and their applications in associative remote viewing. But all of this really connects up not only with the precognition involved, but with health. So that will be the main thrust of what we'll be doing today. I'll be doing a review for newbies and a review for old bees on ARV. Let me meet you, Simon. And then we'll discuss the topic, the now moment, precognition and health. And then we will get into a feedback session, which was done about a month or so ago, I think actually more. So we'll be going through an example of that. And as you'll see, feedback is extremely important here. So that'll be important. And then we're going to make a new ARV prediction. And I'm doing this in a new way. Actually going to be using the system for each of you. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so let's just jump right in. Now, I'm going to turn off, just because it's diversionary, all the videos, and I think I can turn off that sound. Yeah, let me do that. The entering sound. Okay, so let's begin now. The ARV, and let's first discuss it in normal linear time. So the first thing that happens in normal linear time is that you will do a remote viewing session. And the tasking for that remote viewing session will be to describe and sketch your feedback target that you'll be seeing later. You'll be seeing this later in time out here. And this period, I mean, that is your task. When you're in your remote viewing session, your job is to see, experience, generate a transcript that will be a good description of the feedback target that you'll see and be experiencing in the future. So right here, I can bring in this subject of the now. We are in a now talking about this. When you're doing your remote viewing session, you're going to be in the now moments associated with the remote viewing session, with your consciousness there. But just like past memories that you can have in the present now, hey, what did you do last weekend? You can remember that in the now. You can remember the future in this now. And that's what's so marvelous about precognition and your consciousness. Your consciousness has this capability of precognition. And you can, in fact, gather information from what we call the future. So there'll be a future now, which you're accessing here. So that's your task. The next phase I want to talk about, but not in linear time. There's going to be something in between. But these are the most important. These are the two that are strongly entangled, the remote viewing session and the feedback session. So sometime in the future, and we're going to be doing this a little later, and this was done over a month ago, this one we're going to be doing shortly, and it is the feedback session. And basically the tasking there, interestingly enough, is really very similar to here, because during your feedback session, you get into the target, but now you know for sure what the target is. And knowing that all the nows that you're spending in the feedback session are going to be focused on different aspects of the target. You're going to be looking at it. You're going to be going there with your consciousness. You're going to be spending a lot of time during the nows associated with the feedback session. Additionally, here, you're going to have the intention to, in fact, entangle with this session, okay, so that these two nows can exchange information. It's a kind of telepathy with yourself through time. So that's the feedback session. The key thing about the feedback session is you have the transcript you did earlier in linear time, and you have the actual target, the thing which you are supposed to describe. Okay? So these are the key sessions. However, to make this useful, to make this a useful application, this is where associative remote viewing comes in. And this is where an analysis of your remote viewing session is done. And that analysis is based on the fact that we focus on binary ARV, where there are two choices. When we do sports, sometimes we talk about them being over-under, favorite team. With financials, we'll say up or down. But ultimately, there's a question which is equivalent to a yes or no. Will the market move up, as we define up, for example? So that would be a yes or no. So you can always reduce these questions to a yes or no. Now, if we're trying to answer, if that's our application, we're trying to answer a yes-no question, it makes sense in this context of applying remote viewing that we might have two possible targets. The key word here, of course, is possible. Guess what? One possible target is for yes. The other possible target is for no. What actually happens between when we make our prediction, in here, between the analysis and the feedback, there'll be an actual event. And what actually happens is what will determine the target you see. Always. No matter what the prediction is. If the answer is yes, you'll see that appropriate target that's associated with now a specific target. And there'll be another different specific target associated with no. Whatever the actual answer is, that is an actualization of that target. So I hope that's clear, because that's what ARV, associative remote viewing, is. The associations are with two possible targets, one associated with a yes answer to the question, the other associated with a no answer. That determines which target you see, and that's your job during your remote viewing session. So all that's going on in linear time. First this, then the analysis, then the feedback. Now, what is precognition? Well, this is the ability to see, gather information basically from the future, but it's in a way which is not accepted by our paradigm of time. And this is what we do now regularly. It's been proven by science over and over. But most people still don't want to believe it because it is so foreign to the normal way of thinking. And especially when you get into doing it on purpose, which is what we're doing. We're doing this purposefully. And most of society is not ready to accept that yet. Okay, let's take another view of associative remote viewing now. So here are the three phases, right? Remote viewing, analysis, judging, feedback. The idea that when you finally get that precognition is real, you begin to take a different, somewhat point of view, which I think makes sense. And that point of view is purposeful precognition, and probably even the deja vu kind of precognition. And gee, the guy hasn't called me for 5 years, but I knew this next call was going to be his. Those kind of random. I think they actually do begin in a real sense with the feedback, because the strength of the feedback and the actual now moment and the energy given during the feedback is what allows it to happen earlier. So I think this is a really good way of thinking about all this, is that we begin the whole prediction really with the answer in some way which the intellectual mind can't fully understand, but the answer is indeed out there. So here's our cue. Describe and sketch your, and we use a 6-digit number to differentiate between the various targets that we're going to be doing. The interest here is really over the long term. I mean, one session, you might do well, you might not do well, but building up your precognitive skills over the long term so you can normally do better than chance is what we're looking for. No one's going to be 100%. There's even an uncertainty principle. I can almost prove that to you. But the idea is to do much better than chance, and almost all of our yes-no questions are roughly 50-50. Okay, now, what is our target? I use that word. We use what are called photo sites. Now, a photo site refers to a particular location, okay, a real location that, in fact, was photographed. And it's that location when the photo was taken. So consciousness is expected to move to that site at the time the photo was taken and describe and or sketch what can be readily verified or inferred from the photo. Now, do you know why we put that in there? We put that in there for the poor judge. Unless your transcript is like right on, and we don't even, we want enough information to distinguish between two. We love it if the transcript is right on, but historically that doesn't happen in ARV, because doing it regularly, people tend to do shorter sessions than the multi-hour sessions that are required if you really want to get detailed information about, say, a missing person. Where is that person? Those sessions might take hours and hours, and you might do them over days. In associative remote viewing, we're going for like first impression gestalts, visuals, all the things your senses can pick up, but we want the main ones, enough to distinguish between two possible targets. Okay, so we want all the good information about the actual target that you're going to see. And all of your nervous system normal senses can report, and they do report. And you should be open to getting information from all of them. You know, the visual, sound, smells, taste, tactiles, even your emotions. And there are two levels of emotions, and you can learn to tell the difference. The emotion that might be at the target, if there's something really happy happening or sad happening, or your emotion to the target. So this is the kind of information that comes through as a remote viewer, but now it's, of course, all supposed to be relevant to this photo site. So another way of looking at this is your job is to report kind of what's in the narrow view of the photographer who is taking the picture and what ends off on that picture. Okay, now let me say one more thing about analysis judging. You're doing this so that the judge right here can make a choice between the two possible targets. And so that's kind of a sub-cue here, is to describe the gestalts, describe the things which are going on, which are unique in a way to that target. And your consciousness can do that. So that's your job as a remote viewer. And now that you kind of understand this, I hope you'll agree that the idea of it is easy. People always have trouble getting the fact that information can be shared, that you could have something like a future memory. But once you accept that, the protocol and everything is really quite straightforward, in my opinion. Okay, are there any questions? Now would be I pause. Okay, so I think people do get the idea, and that's good. And we're going to be doing this for some of you who are newbies, so you'll see how this actually plays out. Now, one of the other things which is so clear is this is unique to every viewer. And I want to show you an example of that, which will serve multiple purposes for the newbies. You'll get an idea that for ARV, we really are talking about some people do 2 or 3 pages. Most people do 1 or 2 pages. Some people, and I certainly don't discourage it, like to practice their full, say, CRV or other kinds of remote viewing techniques they've learned, and they'll do multiple ones, and that's absolutely fine. Because they see this as practice, because this is remote viewing. You're remote viewing an actual physical target. So I just want to go through some examples so you can see how different people pick up different parts of targets, how you can do things in 1 or 2 pages. So we start with the coordinate. In this case, there is a unique coordinate. AOL stands for analytical overlay. One of the really valuable things which happens as you do associative remote viewing with feedback of any sort, is you get to begin to see the difference between when stuff is coming from your intellectual kind of mind, left brain stuff, versus the really deep subconscious, which is where this information comes from. Your intellect didn't give it to you. You don't do this by guessing, you do it by quietly listening. So that's what the AOL means here. Now, this person's got a helicopter, but drew things like this. Here's the blind target. So sort of interesting. You can kind of maybe see how the mind, the stuff coming up from the deepest parts of you into your subconscious, how they might have gotten a helicopter, sort of like that. vehicle, and got things like this that look, you know, you can see some, you'd give credit, wouldn't you, to this? Spiraling downward, wood colored. Okay, causation energy. That's good too. Picked up the energy associated with this. Now let me show you what some different people picked up. This person picked up the geometry quite well, right? Channel flow, valley of the rift. The idea here is you just report what your subconscious, your deeper part of yourself, is bringing up through what we call the submerged consciousness, the subconsciousness, into your conscious now moment. You don't need to know where it comes from. You don't worry about all that. You've put out your request to describe and sketch the future target, and you take what you get and you trust. Here's another one. You can see a kind of person, giving this as white, dark skinned. Picked up the dark, maybe the skin is backwards, got the white in the wrong place. What I want to point out about this one is this AOL, even though he called it an AOL because it sort of came in that way, labeled it an AOL. In fact, you can see this person labeled a lot of things AOL, high tent, but this one is sound of fabric flapping in the wind. This is what the subconscious gave them. Write it down. Black shoes. Just put down what you get, and it's up to the judge then to rank it versus the other picture. And here's the last one I'll show you. Again, just describe and sketch what you think. Your mind doesn't get in the saying, this is ridiculous. This looks like a porcupine face, but not a porcupine face. A person. I got person here, and yet I got all these spikes coming out. Notice under AOL, put porcupine. All of this came up from the subconscious. The person put down on a one-page transcript, identified this, what was going on. Okay, so you can see the kind of words we use. I call that kind of low level. You don't want to name things. In fact, the fact that porcupine came in, that specific, said it probably was an AOL. We tend to do things with sketches and words. Some people are heavier on the words, some are heavier on the sketches. And these are the kind of words you can get early on, but not always. You tend to get gestalt words like huge, or if there's a specific dominating color, the big picture things that would hit you when you first looked at that site. But you can report all of these things. Anything your senses can report. Okay, so unless anybody wants to do a question or a comment. No, Patricia, I was looking in the chat box. You're all welcome to come when Friday night. We're actually going to be doing a kind of mixer. So I would love you to come on Friday night. In fact, we're going to have a little wine, cheese, so everybody will get to enjoy the mixer. Okay, now let's get to this topic, which I happen to think is a rather important one. But this is the first time I've ever put them together this way. So let's see if you can get what I believe is so important here. The now moment. The time is now. And I think we all sort of know that. We're experiencing something right now. I mean, in terms of consciousness, this is our conscious moment now. How long is it? Well, not clear. But nevertheless, my consciousness, what I'm experiencing directly, what cannot be denied, is what I am doing right now. In some ways, I think this is like the atom of consciousness. This now moment is so important because it's got all the strength that consciousness has. You're listening to things, you're seeing things, you might be smelling things. All this is happening in the now. And so, you know, in the physical world, for a long time, atoms were considered as the fundamental makeup of things, you know, and then we found subsidiary things. You can always seem to break things into parts. But for consciousness, at that same level, knowing there's deeper things, get that now might be like the atom, the fundamental makeup of consciousness. And we have memory. That's sort of cool, both of past and future. But when do you do things? Only in the now. When do you make choices? Only in the now. Okay, and all of that can be summarized in another way. Tomorrow is another now. It's not this now. And I love this sign. I've seen it a few times, something like that. But the now is not the past, but you can remember it. It's not the future. You can remember that too. It is what you're experiencing right now with all of the special intensity, if you will, of what's been actualized. There are in quantum mechanics, and I'm not going to get too technical here, but in quantum mechanics, there are the idea of all possible futures, and in fact, all possible pasts. Quantum mechanics would talk about both of those. And then there's the actualized now. That's what we're talking about. Okay, other ways of angles of this and really getting how important this is. Einstein said the only reason for time is so that everything doesn't happen at once. Gee, would you really want to be experiencing it all at once? Time is the eternal now, seen through the narrow slit of the mind. So the mind can only get this consciousness of this moment, this now moment. But this idea of the eternal now is so important. And in fact, I think that is the deepest level of consciousness, that all the nows are out there now. That's how precognition can work. In fact, it's almost something like precognition and other examples, but precognition may be the best that gets this eternal now to be real, because we know we can predict the future in great detail sometimes, not always, but sometimes, which says that there's this future now is out there in this now. Intellect doesn't understand it. You're here in the eternal now, at the intersection of the past and the future, and there's nowhere else that you can be. You in the physical world, and that's how I would interpret the you here, you in this physical world are designed to be conscious in the present moment. And you can have memories of the past and the future. That's really kind of cool. But you are always living your consciousness in the present now. All that exists within consciousness, including all concepts of space and time, including all remembrances of so-called history. Space and time exist within you. Conscious awareness. You do not exist within them. That is pretty heavy. I really want you to, you were just called a name. Space and time exists within you. You, comma, conscious awareness. Most of us have never really been called, been labeled as conscious awareness. I think that has remarkable amount of depth to it. This is Zen thinking. So if all of the now moments are out there, and not only yours, but all of them, and you're connected to all of them, you are the eternal now. So you can see this idea of conscious awareness, pretty important. So here's this conscious awareness. You saw these two. Now, we often think your consciousness is in the brain. I want to make the point, and it's almost like I'm not telling you anything new here, but I'm trying to switch emphasis for you and get you to really get how fundamental consciousness is. The idea of your whole body, more than just the mind, every cell in your body, perhaps every atom in your body is connected to the all. It's like a holistic whole. You're a holistic whole, except you're connected. And you've got this conscious awareness, which allows you to connect. Now, the mind, again, don't forget this idea of the whole body, but we do think of the mind as being a focal point for this, much more so than the brain, the mind now. And it goes both ways. When you see this picture, at first you might think I'm sending information out. Yeah, you are. And you're receiving information. And what's remarkable is, yeah, this is certainly very spiritual, okay, with this kind of idea. But yet it's also very intellectual. In your conscious moment, you can do all mathematics, you understand those ideas, you use them, you work them. It got us to the moon. I mean, our conscious awareness includes so many different dimensions, and be aware of that, but you'll be using them all in the now. This just came out, at least it's the first time I saw it, and it makes this point of social network, they're calling it. It turns out there are 3 people who were telepathically connected, okay, but they use a kind of an extra machine-like thing to get them to be able to talk to each other. Wait, I want to erase. I know how to do that. They tell me I can erase that. Let's see if I go to the next one, if it'll do it. But we are at the point now where the intellectual now's reality, the spiritual psi kind of realities of connectivity through space and time in non-normal ways are happening, and science is touching on this. And I think all of this is going to lead to a paradigm shift relatively quickly. And I wish I knew how to say more about that, but I don't. There's lots of science going on, the science of consciousness, finding spirit in the face of, in the fabric of space-time. I want to get rid of this. Sorry that I don't quite Pointer options. You think my eraser would allow me to do that? Arrow options. Well, if anybody knows how to do that, let me know. Otherwise, we'll just have to live with it. My audio is choppy. I do not know what to do with that. I hope that's not true of everybody. But there's nothing I can do about it now. Okay, oops. Threw me off here. Let me go back up here. Okay, so science is really Jim, do you want
Yeah.
to say?
I just got my microphone turned on. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, okay. You don't know how to fix
I don't
this.
know what I'm doing. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, I'll mute you. Okay, so now science is looking at consciousness. They don't focus on the now, they're focusing on physical system sides of it, which makes sense. What does science do? We're in this physical world, so science is focusing on that. And they're actually come up with all kinds of good things. As we know, we can point to different places in the brain where different things happen. We can get down to the level of neurons, and we have these things called microtubules. I don't expect you to read any of this. It's the idea that science is getting down to these great details. I mean, they can take pictures like this. You know, these are at the level of nanometers. We're talking about stuff here which is really, really small. Microtubules, trillions of them, literally. I mean, I think you've got something like 100 billion neurons, and there are thousands of microtubules inside those. And yet, one of the other things we know is that paramecium, you see these little things there? This actually sometimes moves. I think there's maybe a bandwidth issue here. But those are microtubules, and paramecium are alive. And they have a relatively small number of them, you know, probably hundreds, maybe 1,000 as a live thing. And they even learn to go towards or away from like light and electricity. You've got 100 trillion of them. That's why you have a lot more capability, I would suspect. And these microtubules, some people think, form something like a computer. There that goes. Okay. So science is doing its thing from the physical level. I want to give you a model now, which I think helps explain a lot of this, which comes more from the spiritual level. It comes from really taking seriously this idea that consciousness is fundamental. If it's the fundamental thing, then this idea of having something like a universe of collective consciousness, and that's what this circle is supposed to represent, a universe of collective consciousness. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean the blue is the UCC containing everything consciousness touches, and thing in the broadest sense that you can imagine. Any thought, any idea, the idea of red itself, okay? Is that in the physical world? Well, you see it through the physical world, but it's like an idea, okay? The idea, anything that consciousness touches, once you've thought about it, it's in this UCC. Now, one of the interesting things about this UCC is you have to ignore the idea of any boundary, of an outer boundary. This is like a circle without a boundary. Because if you thought that, oh, I know something that isn't in there, your very thought put it in there. So this is a kind of set. And I think ultimately some sort of complicated set theory is going to be able to put some mathematics to this, but this is a set that contains everything consciousness touches. It's got no boundary, no separation. You're in here. You thought about you. ETs are in here, right? Because they have consciousness. We're thinking about them. They're thinking about themselves. This is kind of the ultimate definition, in my opinion, of oneness, harmony, and maybe this is the deepest level of spirituality. Okay, so now let's look at a thing without any boundary. It can't have a boundary. We've already said that. The best it can have, we bring out a thing and we think it's a unique thing. I look at an apple. Oh, and that's a unique apple. Well, the fact of the matter is, from the perspective of this universe of collective consciousness, it has to have a fuzzy boundary. For one thing, it's entangled with all the other apples. Where indeed does the apple end? Where did this apple start, on the tree? You're looking at it in this now with the experience of this now, but even its boundary, when you get down to it being very, very small, where does that boundary end? The apple is giving off energy. It's got heat associated with it. Do you want to call that part of your definition of this apple you're looking at? So there are all kinds of things you can ask about bringing something out from the UCC, which, since you can't ever really separate it, since it's a circle without a boundary, so it can't have boundaries, this idea of the fuzzy boundary is very important. And in fact, guess what it does? It introduces uncertainty. Where does that apple really end? What about the fact that there's energy coming out from the apple, thermal energy? It is still, and this is so, so important. In a way, of course, we don't understand. It is still entangled with the entire UCC, right? There are no boundaries. You're trying to take it out from the UCC and make it a unique thing, but in reality, it's still connected to the universe of collective consciousness. So there's some sort of entanglement energy, and I want to say a communication channel are introduced by this very idea of trying to bring one thing out from the UCC. And I hope you get that, because that's, I don't know, that's just so important to realize that when we look around and we try to identify things as being separate, and in the physical world, if you wanted to divide separate in space and give it a fuzzy boundary by say, at least a millimeter, okay, you can do that. But notice you had to add all those extra words, and now it's separate in space. But it's not separate from the UCC. It's still connected there. And this illusion of separateness is part of what we do when we try to break something out as being separate. So this is another way of showing it above, and it allows this idea of the fuzzy boundary connecting up with lots of other parts. In fact, ultimately, since all parts are connected to everything with the entire UCC, but it's connected to some more than others. That apple was connected to the tree it came from more than anything on Mars. But all of Mars is in here. Okay, so yeah, you are. I mean, when you start getting into this, you're a pretty magnificent being with your consciousness. You live in a physical world where time. So now let's talk about time. You know, we've got this now moment, yeah, but it travels through time, okay? So this is another time. This is another time. So we have these multiple times, right? All of these times have their own, from a personal standpoint, a unique now moment. Now, this communication channel is a two-way street. It has to be, since there are no boundaries, ultimately. So all the connections that you have with the past and the future are going both ways. Now, in the present, we is the only time that we have the opportunity for choices. But the fact that we have this uncertainty boundary and we have access to all this information, the way we have access to it and the fact that there's uncertainty involved gives us our ability in the now moment, which is where we can only do things, to have free choices. Because it's us who have this now moment in a time varying way. So we're connected, but this is where creativity and free will comes from, right here. This very, very basic level. It's coming from the UCC. And it's coming from you. You're creating this in the conscious moment, but you're connected to all the things that happened in the past and the things happened in the future. Okay, let's take an example. How about, for example, ARV, associative remote viewing, precognitive associative remote viewing and events. Let's look at you and all the events. So here happen to be 6 events in your life. You, fortunately, have the ability to forget events. So do you really want to have present with you the fact that something that happened 10 years ago that wasn't particularly important present with you right now? Isn't it better to focus on what you are focusing on right now without having that being intrusive, unless you wanted to remember it for some reason, okay, that you intended to remember something in the past. But you, in fact, can ignore past events. That would be, in the terms that I want to use, called decreasing entanglement. You're no longer entangled with even your own personal events, let alone entangled with a lot of the other stuff that's in the UCC. Okay, so you can decrease entanglement. You do it all the time. Well, guess what else? You can increase entanglement. So let's say you got an event here, which is your remote viewing session. Okay, you can, with your intention, entangle that with your feedback session. And during your feedback session, you can intend and expect and do stuff to increase the entanglement purposely with your remote viewing session. See how it got bigger? Your consciousness creates a type of handshake. And that's a word that was actually used by a pretty well-known guy who works with quantum physics. Creates a handshake with these 2 events, and you can enhance the entanglement. Okay, now let's just go and talk a little bit about this idea of entanglement, because when you're doing your remote viewing sessions, this is the sort of thing that's in your mind that makes you feel comfortable about what you're doing, entangling with the feedback session. When you do your feedback session, yeah, I can entangle with my remote viewing session. This comes from Dean Radin, who will be at this IONS meeting with us, from his book, Entangled Mind. So these are his words. One of the most surprising discoveries of modern physics, and that's really quantum mechanics, is that objects aren't as separate as they may seem. When you drill down into the core of even the most solid-looking material, separateness dissolves. All that remains, like the smile of the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, are relationships extending curiously throughout space and time. These connections were predicted by quantum theory and were called spooky action at a distance by Einstein. Several of them, Einstein, Schrodinger, the founders of quantum theory that really had to think about what they were getting into. They dubbed this peculiarity entanglement, saying, I would not, and now we're quoting from Schrodinger, saying, I would not call that one, but rather the characteristic trait of quantum mechanics. Very fundamental. Now, they were all doing this in the context of particles, that photons going in two different directions at the speed of light remain connected instantly. Electrons, molecules, all of this has now been shown in the lab. It's one of the few places Einstein was wrong when he didn't believe this. He thought there was a flaw. Turned out it's been proven. This entanglement in the physical world is no longer debated. Doesn't it make sense it would be in the consciousness world as well? In fact, I would maintain it starts in the consciousness world and the physical matter follows. So, hey, from the standpoint of precognition and ARV, what do we think might help? Well, remember that this entanglement energy between two events comes down from the UCC. So when you're doing your remote viewing session, you want to get the clear sense, and this is what cool down is all about, or in my opinion, some of the early work that goes on with CRV, where they get you to do stuff and sort of try to get you into the target. What you're doing is moving from the intellectual and getting down to getting information directly from the UCC, because that's where everything is indeed connected. And the entanglements which you're creating, these entanglements, remember, it's going through your personal consciousness system, if you will. And so you create them during the RV session, during the feedback session. It all happens in a way which is almost like outside of space and time. So, first of all, getting that, and when you're doing your sessions, getting into a space during your cool down or somehow where you realize the information is coming from something really deep, like the UCC. Hey, the UCC really is like another word for all that is, for Ingo Swann's matrix. But really getting into the fact that this is fundamental, more fundamental than the physical world. Okay, personal ideas that might assist, okay? This whole idea of intention, attention, and expectation. Doesn't that make sense? Your consciousness, your self-awareness of being conscious. Things like intention, those don't have a sense of being in the physical world. You're intending things to happen in the physical world, but guess what? That's all down here. Are you paying attention? Well, are you? That's down here. What's your expectation? Are you expecting while you're here to have a good outcome? Okay. How does that outcome feel? You feel really good about it. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do to increase that entanglement. And over, we just get from so many angles that having positive, loving now moments are just so important. Notice both of these you're doing in now moments, their own now moments, but having them be positive, bringing in love. I think it's hard to imagine actually a better entangler than love. Love, positive stuff being around. And when you're doing your remote viewing session, you're imagining the future events in as much detail as you can. And guess what? When you do the feedback session, you get into those details as much as you can. What was at the photo site? How does it feel? What's going on? What are the biggest stalls? Yes, invest time. Doesn't it make sense that that will influence the entanglement? Maximize your sense of success. Stay positive. Okay, so these are kind of suggestions, but you're the one that has to do it in your now moments. And it's not intellectual, it's the feelings of all these things. You're down here. It's a sense of all these things going on. And the last one is this: minimize the fear of failure. There just has to be in all of us, which means it's always entangled in there to a certain amount, the fear of failure. Okay. Anyway, I think we understand this intellectually, but if a piece of it comes up and you're conscious of it, disappear it. I throw mine in a trash can and send it off to a black hole. Some people put it in a box because they know it's not going to go away completely, but they set it aside. But if you become aware of it in the now moment, minimize it one way or another, and then move on. Now, for the first time, I'm relating this to health. This is what we're talking about here is so deep that the precognition part of it is just one example. The health part is the same thing. If you choose to bring out in the now moment your current health situation with some focus on something, okay, which you would like to improve in some way. You have a minor injury, you have a major injury, you have a health problem of some sort. Well, guess what? Of all the possibilities of the future, right? And I have to, of all the possibilities in the future, and there are a lot of them concerning this health issue, which has its boundary, there are actually many versions where you get better, much better. Well, just like you would spend your time looking at it, you can increase these entanglements. Doesn't that make sense? Since everything that's going on is really going on at this fundamental level of the UCC. Consciousness is indeed fundamental. You can increase entanglements with certain aspects of what we call the future. And so pay attention to the improved health situation. Invest time doing that. Maximize the sense of success. These now moments will come forward, which is kind of cool. You'll be able to see. Now, I want to introduce another idea with health, which is optimum health. And the idea is out there. It definitely has a fuzzy boundary because I don't really know what optimum health means for each of you. Okay? I have a sense of what it means to me, But optimum health has got to be that feeling of, I am really in a position where I'm feeling really, really good about my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health, my emotional health. Do you want all of that? Or do you really only focusing on your physical health? Okay, it's got a fuzzy boundary. But working it, and I bring this up for a couple of reasons. I believe during some meditations, doing this regularly, even if your current health is very good, okay? Even if you have what you might consider to be optimum health now, work it. If you have good health now, get a sense of what you mean by optimum health and work it. I believe in the new paradigm, these ideas are going to be used by healthy people to remain healthy. Why only do this when you've got an injury? Why not realize that optimum health is something which, in fact, you could maybe put a little time into to encourage, to spend time thinking about what you really mean by optimum health. Okay, that's my presentation on that. Do you have any questions, comments? Okay, Big Blue. For instances where the session data picks up, records data from both targets roughly in equal measure. If the eternal noun brings us one discrete outcome, what can we do to improve the session? Okay, so what we're talking about here is what is usually called displacement. And we'll talk about it some more, but let me use this picture. The remote viewing session, when your now is here, okay, just because you're doing ARV, whether we like it or not, there is, through the judge, right? The judge, if this is sort of time, the judge sees both targets, so they're down in the UCC, whether we like it or not. We must accept, and this is just so important, and this is something we learned. This is not something I would have said 10 years ago. We must accept that the remote viewer's consciousness has access to both possible targets. That's why we have these cases of displacement of viewers who have never seen the target they described so beautifully. So we know this whole model gets support from the fact that consciousness has access to everything, even not what the intellect would say. There's no way you could know that. The subconscious has access to it. Okay, so given that, what could we do? So the answer, first, in the highest level in the vagus sense, is increase your entanglement with the correct target, minimize the entanglement with the other target. How do you do that? Well, intention, attention, expectation. That's really important. All of that with the correct target. This positive, loving stuff, spend more time during your feedback session. Don't you think spending more time with the feedback session, knowing you're sending that down into your conscious UCC through your subconscious, your consciousness is interacting here, and your intention and expectation is that it will have an impact on the remote viewing session? And doing this every time improves your future ones, because your subconscious, this whole communication channel, is learning. You're the one who builds this communication channel. So you do all of these things. And I personally think when you have a real case of displacement, when it is really super, super good, I happen to think you did it on purpose. You didn't do it on purpose intellectually, but your subconscious, for whatever reason, really described that. Now, it could be you hated the other picture. Could be you loved this picture. There could be lots of reasons. How are you going to figure it out? Spend time asking your subconscious. That turns out to be my bottom line advice here, is spend time with your subconscious asking, why did this happen? And really go in with the assumption that if you can find an answer, you can get rid of it and make it better. And this gets done a lot. Your subconscious will actually give you information. Okay, I don't know what else to say. So that's the answer to the question. Yeah, we're about, after we do feedback, we're going to go and actually do a prediction, and each of you, Carolyn, are going to get your own coordinate. Okay, so we're now about to get into feedback, where it all starts. So I like to do this, but this is now feedback from something that I had a month ago, and then we're about to do a prediction for a month in the future. So that's sort of been the style we set up for these workshop webinars. So what I want to remind you of, first of all, is what we're about to get into. It's all you. Now, the UCC and the universe contains all kinds of other people and things and stuff out there. Yes. So this whole idea has its own fuzzy boundary. But within that, the basic idea is it's all you. Because you're doing the remote viewing, you're doing the feedback. This I psi is this deepest part of you that's involved with this consciousness psychic work. Okay, I just use that symbol for you, and you have a fuzzy boundary, but that's you here and that's you here. Now the feedback session has this retrocausal effect. That's a new buzzword that's getting used, because the idea is it starts here at the beginning. You know, this idea of it begins with the feedback session is what retrocausality basically says, and goes back here. And then feel this truth, believe this truth, know that you can get better and better with practice. So it's you. Don't blame anybody else. Don't blame anything else. The judges, you get to look at this so you can see how well you did. The judge may judge you the wrong way. Doesn't matter. If the target's the other choice, you take responsibility for describing the wrong one, because you did. You're only supposed to describe what comes up here, period. But it's up to you then to use that. The misses are indeed the best form of learning. Okay, so the one that we did, which was in the notice, was the question associated with the coordinate 432846. Will the Dow be over 25,000 on August 13th? The prediction was no. The outcome was yes. So that meant that the group had a miss, but some people, you know, could have actually said no, but the way I judged it, I think most of them actually said yes, and there were some good ones on the yes side, and it was a miss. And there might have been displacement, or there might have been who knows what. I'm not going to go back and do that at the group level. It's important to do it at the personal level. The actual target was photo site B, and I just wanted to show you here that on August 13th, it was over 25,000. So the outcome indeed was yes. Again, you don't have to follow all this in detail, but okay, now how do I get my feedback target? This is very similar to how you get your coordinate. Everything is done online. So there was an email sent with a link, which then a person put in their email address. And in this case, it was just me. And this is the email which goes out. And all you would do would be to click here, and then feedback target comes up. So this was the feedback target for 432842. So now let's look at, okay, so take a look at that. In fact, if you were doing feedback on this, what hit you first? The blue, a person, maybe a camel, the shape of the camel, fuzzy, buildings in the background, rectangular stuff is hitting me. Okay, and probably different things hit you at first. But then you also, you don't ignore the details, because you can sort of right now, I can imagine the kind of transcripts that I wish, if it were me, I didn't do this, I wish I had done it. Okay, is Stuart here? Okay. This now is the transcript that was done here for this case. And let's look at it and let's see if I were doing the feedback, what I would do. I would look at this. It looks like he got a miss. So let's see how a person like this could learn something. First of all, now notice the A's and B's. I'm going to ask you to do that too. We're looking at the B picture. So he got wide right. That's cool. Blue, notice he got the color. And he got that right. That's nice. Right now, that's great. I give myself a lot of credit. I picked that up. Thank you, subconscious. Grief, maybe because it's the Mideast. I don't know. Body, certainly. So smooth, yeah, there's a lot of smooth stuff in there, though maybe marginal. So he got 15 A's, 54 B's that he actually marked here. I think we're only seeing one page, and that's a good way to score. We'll talk a little bit about scoring in a moment. So first go over the good stuff. Then what I recommend, especially with a miss, is new sheet of paper. I'm now always recommending a new sheet of paper, put the coordinate on top, and now put just a few things that you would have needed to make this a really high score. And there aren't many. The blue again, you write blue again on there. Probably I would put building stuff, these rectangles. You might put an arc, little arc like this. Person, the word person, or a little face, maybe a little something for his hat. And you don't sketch this. You just put a few things. Enough so that in addition, here you would get a lot more B's because you got a lot more that was correct. And I would do this now at the feeling level. Let me just see if he did anything. Well, he got hard. Okay, notice there was no buildings. Clearly, there are buildings in the background. I would take some time, and you can all do it now because this will help you. in sensing from deep down what do buildings feel like at the level of the UCC, and what do these buildings feel like? And I'm drawing them. I'm drawing them with rectangles inside. Okay, but I'm doing this at the feeling level so that next time I get either something like this, I'll also know better what to do. But if I get something even quite different, I'm going to know that during the feedback session, I'm going to spend time with it. So that's that one. Here's another one. Lila, are you here? No. So let's look at Lila's. She got outdoors. Notice big bees and little bees, and you should do that as well. In fact, I do little bees, normal size bees. Every now and then I'll do a super large bee. If it's so right on, if it captures like a major aspect of the picture and is unusual. Russ Targ always says surprises, something that comes out of the blue. Isn't that another way of saying coming out of the subconscious? The exact opposite of the intellect, comes out of the blue. There's blue. I don't know if she got the colors. Notice this time she didn't get the colors. So spend some time with the color blue. 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 Even reflective. Blue and white. Blue and white. Clothing. You see, words are coming up now that I should be putting on this other sheet of paper. As I'm looking at this and getting deeply, my subconscious is saying, oh, look at that, blue, white. And I'm getting the sense that it's coming up from the subconscious. Hanging, yeah. You see, she also, I think, went with A. They look like there are a lot more A's here than B's. This is why the group went the other way. Yeah, she got 19 A's and 10 B's. Okay, people get misses. And I don't think if you have a miss to go back, and we won't do that, and look at the other one to see if you judged it correctly is worth doing. I like people to put their confidence rankings on here. I don't see them. I only consider it a displacement if you're like even over 5 or 5 and above on this confidence ranking scale that we'll get to shortly. Okay, and here's the last one. Notice he gave the A a 5. Again, I would have to look and see if I believe this was displacement. Notice got person, didn't even mark that one with a B. That's the other thing whenever you do this, you say, did I at least even mark the ones I should have? Got a person, but marked it as a little b. I would say looking at this person probably when they did A felt, aha, it's got to be A, and downgraded B. Don't do that. You must judge them each independently. Okay. Any questions on the judging? So I'm sorry, I said judging. I meant feedback. Any questions on this feedback? It's extraordinarily important. I probably should spend more time on it, but we only have a finite amount of time. I don't know what to tell you that will get you to recognize it's so important. I say it over and over and over again. People like in the now, right now, will be able to appreciate it. But then when you get out to the world, you finish a prediction, you get the outcome, whether it's a hit or a miss, you just don't spend appropriate amount of time. You got something else to do. Become aware of that, pay attention to that, and modify it, because the time, your behavior clearly is important here. It makes sense. It's all entangled together. When you get a hit, celebrate big time, right? But you don't have to spend a lot of time, but celebrate big time. When you get a miss, I think you should spend more time, because now you have right in front of you all the evidence. You've got information which can guide you to figure out how to do better. And, I give you some words here, but I've come to the conclusion that it's up to each individual person to figure it out, if you will, because it's you. Why did you do this? Why didn't you do that? And you won't get an intellectual answer. What you want to do is work with the communication channel to get a sense of all this. And the intellect might very well pick up some of the stuff, but it's really communicating with the subconscious and the UCC what it is you want to do next time. You've learned something that you want to put into practice next time. Okay, let's do a new prediction. And I'm going to show you what that new prediction is. And some people might actually consider this front loading, but I have two answers to that. One, it's minor. Two, you're strong enough that you can get over this kind of front loading. Everybody, there's just, the information is out there. Even if I didn't show you this, it's out there. So don't worry about it. But we're going to be doing a prediction. This is as of when I did this earlier today. The SPY, which is just like the Dow Jones, but it's the Standard & Poor's 500 in a stock version. Again, you don't have to understand all of this. The fact is, it goes up and down, and you can see it's been in a strong uptrend. Will it in the next month, and each of these are a day. So the green was an up day, the red was a down day, and the high and low are shown. Will it get over 300? Will this trend continue? Yes or no? So everything is blind about this, as you'll see, so knowing that doesn't matter. I hope each of you will be, and some of you I know already are, will be in one of our prediction groups. This is the webinar workshop prediction group, and I have sent an email to there, but I'm the only active member in that group. This is what I use it for. However, I've decided to do something different than we've done in the past, because I want this to be closer to what happens in the actual prediction group, so that you can all ask questions, the absolute newbies. So what I am going to do is have each of you act as if you clicked on this link from your group. So I'm going to give you this link in the chat box. So give me a moment. Give me a moment to get that. And then each of you are going to be doing your own session with your own coordinate. And I hope you understand that that's the classical thing you'd be doing in any one of these groups. Okay, wait, I copied that link here. Oh, this is, I see that's getting in the way. Okay, here it is. And then we're going to go through it. I'll do it on the screen, but I know you'll have a hard time looking at my screen and doing it at the same time. Now I got to get the chat box back, which is here. Okay, so what we're now in the learn by doing phase, and we're now going to the remote viewing, and your task is going to be to describe the target. Now I just clicked on it, and this is what came up. Here is where you will put in your personal email Okay, so I don't know. Hopefully you can go back and forth, but that's pretty straightforward. You put in your own email twice. Webinar workshop is already marked. And then you click here to receive your coordinate. And there is my coordinate for my name. Each of you will have your own coordinate. Okay, I might actually do a very, well, I'll see how I feel. Okay, so that's my coordinate right there. Now I'm getting a blank sheet of paper. So first of all, do each of you now have your own personal coordinate, or was there some sort of hang up? No, you can't get the feedback for a month because the prediction, Patricia, was for something to happen a month in the future. Now in the regular prediction groups, the feedback comes back within days because the prediction is for a sporting event that's just a few days in the future. But this is a different approach. We're doing this a month, and notice we have these once a month. So that's sort of a different pace. And it forces you actually to think through, does that matter? And in my opinion, it doesn't. The UCC has it all. Why was a month be any different than one day? And there's evidence that supports it doesn't matter. No, where is the address? Okay, Jack, did you get in the chat box this link? Did you see the link in the chat box? All of you. Can you see my chat box now? You probably can't. Here, I'm going to put it in the chat box again. Go to the chat box. Okay, some of you got it. Terrific. Some of you are still having problems. I want to make sure there's nobody with a problem because this is the next step is to do the remote viewing session. In fact, some of you that are experienced, you're welcome to start now. You know the routine, the cool down, but I'm going to go through it for the beginners. So let's now make sure everybody has got it. So here's the link. You click it. And when you click that, a page like I'm showing here will come up. And then you put in your email address because that's where the feedback is going to go. And you put it in here. And you put it in here. And then you click here. Are we all okay? You don't see any link. Did you click? Oh, well, the link was what I put in the, no. Okay. Patricia, do you have a chat box? And you do not see, I'm putting it in one more time. What just came in the chat box that instant? I see you. How can you not? You don't see it? Nothing. Okay, that's interesting. Then what I will do is what you said. I will send it to you via email. Let me go to my email. And this is how it usually comes, so obviously that's not a problem for you. So there it is, and let me see if I have your, are you Patricia Flores? Is this you? Okay. Without a subject, sure. Okay. Very good. Is there anybody else that's having that problem. I wonder if you were on a Mac or something. Did I do something here? Okay, so the last thing I wanted was here. So is everybody, yeah, okay, you're certainly welcome. So does everybody now have a coordinate? Let me, I've actually lost my chat box here. So what I'm going to do is go back to my PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going to assume everybody has their coordinate. If not, turn on their mic. I do not have my chat box yet, and I want to move on. Okay, so I am going to assume everybody has got their own coordinate. And you know what's funny enough, if you don't even have a coordinate, do a session, it's your intention that matters, and we can attach a coordinate to it later. So right now your intention is to describe and sketch the feedback photo site, knowing that consciousness is fundamental. You can do this, and there's no issue. We've talked about intention, attention, and expectation. This was McMonagle in May. So on a sheet of paper, for you newbies, write the coordinate first right now on top. Put your name, a date, and a time. This is good for records, important. And if any of you want a sheet like this, I can send it to you. Some people like to make their own. They put things in different order. But this is like a reminder of all the things that you can get. The gestalt, so that very first thing that might hit you, the big picture stuff, but sometimes it doesn't come in at the very beginning, but mostly it does. AOLs are typically put on the right. That's when your intellect comes, and then sketches here. And as you saw many examples, people come up with their own ways of doing it because the information comes in different ways. Everybody comes up with their own approach, but the ideas are here. And now we're ready to start. So we do what's called a cool down. That's where you kind of get rid of the intellectual, ego, day-to-day physical stuff and get connected through your sub with the UCC and the specific information that you intend and expect to get. And so that's your, then goes on your transcript. So right now, I know some of you have already started, but for your newbies, you could be stretching maybe just a little bit. I'm going to give you 10 minutes for the cool down and for doing your transcript. People actually might spend roughly half the time, 5 minutes, just getting cool and getting ready. Joe McMonagle thinks this is a very important part of the process, and it makes sense because this is where you're getting rid of the intellectual stuff and getting down to where the raw information is. There is a quiet 5-minute notice. I will give you a 1-minute notice, and you're ready to go. So I'm going to turn this on here. But I'm not sure you can see it. But this keeps me up to my 10 minutes. Okay, you have about 1 minute left. Okay, why don't you come on back now to your quote, normal state. We're about to go into judging, and you're each going to judge your own. And this is where I'm doing this now for the first time. So here's the idea. What I need are each of your email addresses. So let me just see here. So see the next step, and you're not going to do this. The next step is to upload, right? You would now, right here, put in a transcript and upload it. Well, in fact, I take that back. Each of you can do that. But first we have to do the judging. You're right. With this new approach, you'll all be able to do that, and I'll be able to see if there are any problems with that. Okay, cool. As I said, this is the first time I've done this. So you have a transcript in front of you. Now you have to do the judging. You're going to do self-judging. So on each of you should have a page just like this, correct? So I guess I usually like to see the judge. Okay, we'll be able to do that too. So using your smartphone, a scanner, in some other fashion, simply browse and get this onto your computer. Some of you old bees will certainly know how to do that. And let me see if there are any problems. If there's a problem, you might turn on your mic so we can talk about it. Let me, some of you may be putting it in the chat box, so I'm trying to get my chat box. So what I want you to do now is on that submit page, actually do it, because this is what you would do when you do a prediction. You need to submit your transcript. So on this page right here, submit your transcript, and when you do that, notice each of you have your own coordinate. You will get your own pair of targets to judge against. So then you'll be on your own. For the judging, though, we'll obviously talk about it. So what I need to know is if you guys are okay doing this. Are any of you having problems? I don't know what this is. I'm afraid if I turn this off. Yeah, turn on your mic. There's a very, if you're having a problem, and let's talk about it. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so you've already judged yours, Patricia. Okay, that's great. Let me just see if anybody's having a problem. You're an OB. I don't see anybody on the chat box and nobody is talking to me. So I'm going to assume you all have a look at your own pictures. So let's wait a while, Patricia. You did a pretty fast judging. Judging needs to be done, as you well know, carefully. Are you seeing my screen now with Simon? Are you seeing my screen now? Are the rest of you seeing this screen, the one that's tasking and Q coordinate? Oh, you're not. Oh, what are you seeing? You know, it's funny. Somehow I switched to this, and I don't know how that happened, but we'll use it. Let me share my screen now then. Oh, that's because your video is there. I switched to your video. Okay. Presumably you're seeing it now, correct? Okay, very good. And so I ask again, it's from here. Each of you should have your own one of these. When you got your coordinate, you have your own coordinate. But the next step is to get into your computer and then browse and upload your transcript. And it looks like everybody has done that. So then the next thing that'll happen, when you do that, is you'll see two pictures. I don't want to put any other pictures up besides those two for you, because now one of those is going to be your target. You use your transcript, marking it with either A or a B. You might use a little a or a little b if it's marginal. Every one of the elements on your transcript. And I am now going to go. So you're now doing the judging. The idea, of course, is yes or no. While you're judging, and you're probably not looking at my screen, but you might be able to listen to my words. It's almost like you want to put around you a bubble that doesn't share what's going on with judging with anything else, because you don't want to put a big signature during judging of the two pictures. Okay, now we know everything is connected, so there's something there, but you want to keep it as a minimum. So make that as part of your intention as you're judging, to just sort of keep it into these now moments and not share it with anything else. So you're off in your private judging room and doing your judging and not sharing. So it's like a psychic shielding from everything else. Now, on that page, there's something which is called the TAR Confidence Ranking System. So you'll see that below the pictures. First one picture, then the second, and then both. I've got it on the screen now. And we use a 0 to 7 judging system, where 0, 1, and 2 go from no correspondence to what would be just sort of random. I mean, even if you ask somebody, just put some words and a sketch on a piece of paper and had no intention to match it with yours, there might be some matches with one of the two pictures, okay? And that's considered a 2. You know, you get 1 or 2 colors maybe, and you might get a little shape, but you don't get much more. A 3 is right on the margin. We now say, yep, I did make psychic contact. I've got a mixture of correct and incorrect elements, but enough of the former to indicate that the viewer has made contact with the target. So you feel that psychic contact is made with the target. You would give it a 3, but it's like right on the margin. A 4, we go to good correspondence with several matchable elements intermixed with some incorrect information. So now you've got some good matches. People have a hard time often going between a 3 and a 4. You can give it a 3.5. A 3.5 is our lowest amount to be wagerable. So if you give yours a 3.5, you said, yeah, I think I made psychic contact, a little better than minimum. I'd be willing maybe, if I were a wagerable type person, to wager a few bucks on it. That's a 3.5. A 4 is good correspondence with several matchable. A 5 is where it gets really good. Russ Targ now used these words: good correspondence with unambiguous, unique matchable elements, but some incorrect information. Unambiguous and unique together, I mean, in my opinion, more than just a color blue. You know, unless blue is super dominant, usually it would be something that would be unique to that picture, something a little bit stronger than just a color, and would love more than one. So this is really good stuff. You really made contact with the now moment that you're going to have with your feedback. So that's a TARG confidence 0 to 7. Write that on your transcript. I'm sorry, what was that? Jim, did you? Jim, say that again.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. Your mic is on, and okay. Now there's a more kind of quantitative way of doing this, which is something which Joe McMonagle came up with, and that is when you start with these first impression gestalts. This is the kind of thing when you first looked at each of the possibles, what hits you in the face? What gets you in the ballpark right away? And there can be more than one of those. I mean, there might be a real ocean picture, and there might be water, big, vast, or there might be a pyramid, and also you might get something big. Or there might be something in a small room, and you might get sense of being enclosed. But there's something that might come in. That's what he would talk about as a gestalt, a big picture kind of impression. And he gives 50% of the weight to that. So he does judging in 2 ways. He gives the other 50% of the weight to this counting that you're doing with the A's and B's. So the A and B counting, one usually should be, things go the way we want it to go, much higher than the other. And you take a ratio of the A's over the total amount that it could have been. And see, what this gets at is if you just got a few things, let's say you marked 2 A's and 4 B's, but there were indeed 20 possible elements. Well, both of those ratios are very small. Rule of thumb is you need to have about a 50% ratio if all you're doing is ratios to be up at the 3 level or so, okay? He would say you use that ratio for 50% and then you add the gestalt. So if there were like 3 major gestalts there and you got 2, you give yourself a 2/3 here, a 0.66. Here you might give yourself, it were good a 0.5. You add those up and you get a number between 0 and 2. And that gives you this confidence ranking. But once you get to 0 to 2, the way we really want you to do it is you just multiply that 0 by 2 by 3.5. Notice a 1 is 3.5, a 2 is 7. So that's the second way of doing scoring. Now, on the bottom of the sheet where you are, you should see your coordinate next to a CR. Jim, you keep unmuting yourself, and we get an echo. I wish I'd taken a picture. Well, it would have had my pictures on it. Okay, I think you've probably done enough judging that I'm now going to go to my picture. So I'm going to browse. I did not do a session, so I have just a dummy transcript. You already did your submits. Oh, that's interesting. So all of you should now, those are my two choices. Then you get down to here. And here is where you ultimately put in your 0 to 7 confidence rankings. So you're going to judge, and you just did your transcripts against these two. Here's where you click and you get the SRI confidence ranking, which I showed you. So that's available to you always during your judging. You know, the idea here was to make it as simple as possible and have you focus on what was important. And for the judging, what was important is to put in confidence rankings. So when you finish your judging, and I'm not rushing you at all, this is such an important, you take as much time as you need on your individual sheet, you will put down on what the confidence ranking is. So you'll put anything between 0 and 7 for how it matches A, your A, and 0 to 7 to how it matches your B, and you put comments in. I had all the viewers do their own individual coordinates and transcripts for this one. They submit their own CRs. Okay, so that's it. So it looks like, are there any questions or anything? Because I'm now going to go ahead and do it for me. Patricia, you said you already have done this, but this is where you put it in. Since I didn't do one, I'm just going to give myself, well, I'll leave it at 0, 0. I didn't do a session. And since all of you did, usually what I do here is I look at everybody's for the same coordinate and I put in a prediction. But I've decided I want to try this. I think this might be better. We'll see. So now I am submitting it, and this is just what you guys should do with yours. And I indeed got a pass. And you now, for the first time, will actually know which direction each of them, the A and B, was associated. So A was randomly associated with no, B was associated with yes. So if you gave two CRs, confidence rankings, and one of them was bigger than 3.5, you will have something here which will tell you whether or not your prediction was a no or a yes. And that's all that matters. The group is not important. You are working to improve your precognition, your connection with your subconscious, so that you can use it in other areas, including health and lots of other things. Don't you think it'd be really cool to get information from the UCC through your subconscious and have that communication channel be open? Okay, now let's try something brand new. And I should now be able to stop my sharing. Let's see if we can do double share. No, I'm going to do the way I know for sure. I've now stopped my sharing. Patricia, just since you did this first, do you have on the bottom of your screen anything which says share, share screen, anything like that? Or can I maybe, let me see if I can get, if I have the option to have you share your screen. I know I do, but I'm trying to do it as easily as possible. I think what I have to do is make you a co-host. Okay, I just made you a co-host. No, I didn't. I made Simon a co-host. wait, no, I didn't. Okay, Patricia Moore, make co-host. Okay, look at the bottom of your screen now. Do you see that, Patricia? And let's see, is there anybody else who on the bottom of there, it says co-host here, and it says share. And if you just click the share, we'll be able to see your screen, and then we can see your transcript and your pictures. That's not working real well. Let me make Simon. Well, in the past, I had people send it to me. I'm now trying to get everybody to show it from their own screen. But we have to figure out, there's a way you can show your screen. Is anybody here familiar with Zoom? Because it'll be easier for them. If this is hard, then I won't be able to do this next time. But Patricia, on the bottom of your screen, there should be a way of doing this. Who would like to show their transcript on the screen? So I'm sort of asking for a volunteer. Maybe that's the way to do it. Put it in the chat box or something. Am I missing? What if I'm missing? Okay, Jack, good. Let me see you. You don't see anything there now, so I'm going to make you a co-host. And it shows on my, there you go. Okay. So we're all now looking at Jack's screen. Perfect. And that was the last one I saw. Very nice. Very nice. And notice in his comment area, you can see what he did. For photosite A, he got a 0.17. For photosite B, he got a 0.6 in terms of the ratio. And he wrote, and see, writing this down, this is all saved on our server. So, in fact, notice your cursor is moving. Is that your cursor moving, Jack? Oh, that's perfect.
Yes. Can you hear me?
And we can hear you all. Yep.
Oh, okay. I emailed the stuff to myself. Let me just.
Okay, and anybody else who wants to do this, so we can all talk about it. You can get feedback from me and others. Just get your computer set. You don't have to email it to yourself. Just get it set up so you can see it. Emailing it to yourself is fine, but.
Well, I have the pictures.
Okay,
too.
there you go. There are the two pictures. Okay, and now let's look at your transcript over here. Yeah, see, this is good, Jack. You've been when I was doing this, so you know exactly how we want it. Very nice.
No, I'm just lucky.
Okay, so just talk us through the really good stuff with the B. I can see you got.
Well,
Was it B you went with? Yeah, it was B.
I went with B, which, oh wait, you can't see that picture here, sorry.
Right.
It's similar to your B, but
Okay.
I mean, going through and looking at all the matching of the elements, I had very little that seemed to match the picture of the owls, but I had a lot that matched the picture of the highway in the desert.
Very nice.
Dusty, dry. Well, I even had an AOL of desert.
Yep.
So
Very
I'm not.
nice.
My sketches weren't really very clear. But
No, this looks like a road. You know, you called it a river.
Yeah, the B.
But it has a little bit of the perception in it.
Right.
Now, what's
Well,
so interesting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I put a B next to that one.
Yeah, and see what I'm saying is, and I do this sometimes when I'm judging, I imagine myself at feedback time, and I would say, oh, look at that. That's actually showing a little bit of the perspective. Maybe that's what the sub was trying to tell me. And I'll learn that at feedback, and I'll tell my sub if it's correct. Thank you for trying that, sub, and doing it, you know. Okay, that's good. Mushy, dry. Now, this is really good. And notice you're over the 0.5 level. Let's see if you have something I would call a gestalt. Well, yeah.
That I haven't really gotten the hang of yet, the gestalt.
Well, and we'll keep working it. On this one, you know, could have done the clouds, I suppose. But you have, I mean, this is not quite because you didn't have the straight lines, you know what I'm saying? But you had the straight lines here, and you saw this as a tall structure. But, you know, this is a structure with the straightish lines. Yeah, I mean, you know, this is just right. Had you gotten more, you would have ranked it higher. I think a 4 is just right. I wouldn't quarrel with this at all. Very nice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now, oh, good. So you disconnected. Who else would like to volunteer? Patricia, did you see at the bottom a share? Because you are a co-host.
At the bottom, it just says share screen. There's a button.
Right. Yeah. Why don't you see if you can find it that says share screen? Are you on a Mac or, you know, you had two problems now, so there's some communication issue between us. So it doesn't, I don't see it up here. Okay, would anybody else like to volunteer? And don't be shy. This is all for learning. Give us a chance to talk about stuff. Okay, well, that's fine. In fact, what I'm going to do after we have everybody do it this way, I might be able to get some information for you. Well, don't you, I mean, this is just for sharing with us. You've already done everything you need to do. So I think there's just a problem, Patricia. We'll just have to live with that. Do you want to share with us how you felt about it? How, was your judging easy, hard, marginal? Your mic is open, so you can talk if you want. Okay, you don't want to talk. Okay, anybody else want to share their transcript? But hopefully you did submit it. Okay, let's go to the next. Let's go to the next phase, which in fact we almost could have ignored. So let me show my screen now. So I'm hitting share. I'm going to show my main screen. And now what I'm going to show you is something which I've never really shared before. And that's this. As the group manager, okay, and I'm playing that role for the webinar, and then the other ones, which are short term, they all have a group manager. The group manager does want to make a group prediction. I no longer think it's nearly as important as I was hoping. I was hoping that would make this all easy, and it hasn't worked out that way. Getting multiple predictions, you think that would be really very helpful. But the software is set up so I can see everybody's prediction.
I'm sorry, Mr. Marty, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. I have trouble with technology. I really tried to share my screen, but somehow I couldn't.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, I mean, I haven't been practicing at all. So today I got really excited when I saw the feedback pictures, at least the pictures that you sent with the coordinates, right? So I felt so good when I saw the two pictures, because the first one it was like kids drawing a flower on the sidewalk or something like that, and that's exactly what I saw. I mean, I got the emotions: love, happiness, beautiful, dark brown, dark background, flower, beige, pale rose. I got even the colors, but I also got very few characteristics of the other picture, which it was just a building. And I got a stillness and well, I think just a stillness for that one. The only thing is that I didn't see any people, but I got the emotions, right? Happiness, and the kids were drawing a flower, a big flower, and in the drawing I made I made a flower, one flower. So I don't know, I gave it a 4.5 to the photo site A, and CRB of 1 to the photo site B.
Okay, Patricia, that sounds wonderful. And in fact, I'm going to show you that I get that information as group manager. Let me say one other thing about that too. Not picking up people, there are others who do the same thing, while other viewers pick up people beautifully. That's what they get. It's during the feedback session, no matter whether you got a hit or miss or a pass, that you would have the opportunity to notice, oh, my transcript, look at that, I missed people, which was a major kind of gestalt in this picture, right? People.
Yeah.
Then you get quiet during feedback. Now you get quiet and you get the sense of what people are. You draw a little whatever about the people that you'd want to draw, and that's how you use the feedback session.
Yeah, well, when I was thinking about it, because I asked myself, is there people here? And I didn't feel that there was people, but I got the feelings. I got beautiful, love, happiness, tenderness. So those are people's emotions, right?
Right.
So I was curious why I didn't see people, but I saw the flower. I wish you could share my transcript, and or you can see my transcript, because
Now,
I
I'm
got the
going to
flower.
show you. I actually can, but I didn't want to do it that way. But maybe next time I will. Okay,
Mhm.
what I have on the screen now is as a group manager, and I don't know if you remember, but our prediction was, will SBY be over 300? So
Mhm.
this is the one I want to choose. And this is only the group manager usually would see this. And notice what I now have here. All the information that you put in is here for me to look at. In
Uh-huh.
fact, let's look at the little bit of it. Oh, you didn't click submit, Patricia.
Oh, I did. I did submit, and well, let me go back to my screen and check that. But I did, and
Well, aren't you?
I
Well,
got
what's your username? What's your username? Ian.
CS91.
Oh yeah, you're here. I'm sorry, I just didn't
Yeah.
recognize you. So you can see my screen.
Uh,
You can all see
let,
my screen. So
let me
there
go
you
back to your screen. Uh-huh.
and there's your 4.5 and 0,
Mm-hmm.
and there are all of your comments. So I get to see them now, and of course they're saved for you to analyze later with all of your others, because it'll help you.
Yeah.
And also it shows that you did side one,
Yeah.
okay,
And the
um,
answer was no.
which
Mm-hmm.
was a no. And there's 4.5, and your 2 is over here. Just the way this works, the group managers all know that. So this is photo site A. You gave a 4.5. You gave a 2 over here. We also saw, um, uh, Hunchek, what is your first name? A Jack. No?
Oh, you're
Yeah.
getting a feedback on the
Yeah.
sound. Maybe I should close my
Yeah. Why don't
mic.
you? Yeah. Yeah. And I'll mute Patricia now. Um, so remember, he told us there was a 2 and a 4. So he is on the yes side. You're on the no side. And then here's Anita. She gave a 3 and a 5. So she was also on the yes side. So what does a group manager do? They might average, they might not average. But here is where I would put in a group um, prediction. But what you're seeing is what the group manager has access to. And let me just go, since you mentioned it, Patricia, and we didn't see yours, I'll show you that a group manager has access to both photos as well as your transcript. So here's your transcript. Here's where you talked about the flowers, flower arrangement. Here is the flower: fragile, beautiful, love, happiness, beige. No people you wrote, but you, as you said, you got that love and happiness, which um, was good for that. In fact, now let's look at the picture. The other thing I can show you is I can see both of the pictures, because you see, as a group manager, I might want to independently judge it. And this was the picture you described. So there's the flower. So your description was very good of what happened, but now everybody else can see. So this is what the group managers have access to. Dark background. Yeah, that was certainly good. No people, that's not good. So you probably marked these appropriately. Flower, of course, is very good. Beige pale rose. Let's just take a quick look. I don't see any beige. Pale, I don't know what to do with. Again, you can leave some words blank. it's not like they're wrong. They're either right or nothing. And so I don't know. See, I don't know how you scored your transcript, but that's something which you do need to learn how to do. I would certainly give credit to all of these, but now let's take a look at the other picture. Yeah. You see, this no people would be a match to that one, correct?
Yeah, I actually gave that no people to
Yeah.
picture B. And about the colors, I mean, it's not exactly like pale rose, but it's
Uh-huh.
light pinkish, right? So I would say it's okay.
Okay, you could give yourself a small color for that. You're the judge. All I can do is give you my opinion, which is not worth much more than an opinion. You do this and you learn yourself based on the hits and misses.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that's the whole point. I don't see much more anything indicate, well, though this might. Nah, I don't see lines like that. So I would agree with your side, and you gave it a 4.5 because the flower was so strong, and that was a gestalt in there for sure. So maybe that's okay.
We'll
No,
see. We'll have to wait a month.
right. Well, I'm just saying from the judging standpoint, had it been a 4, that would have been okay too. Just because there wasn't, you missed the people, which was a major gestalt. But a 4.5 might be right too. I won't quarrel with that.
Yeah.
Anita, let's take a quick look at you, Anita, okay? You still with us?
Hi, yes, I'm still here. You hear me fine?
Okay, let's take a look at Anita here. So let's look at your transcript. They don't let me easily rotate, unfortunately.
Oopsie.
Now, I can see the picture and you can tell us the words. That's right, that'll work because you have it in front of you, presumably.
Okay.
And let me get the pictures up. So, and you ended off going with A, was that right?
Yes.
I think I remember that right. Okay, so tell us what you got right on the transcript. Whoa, that's big. Because you gave it a 5.
Yes, let me just quickly see. Oh, goodness. I'm going to kick myself.
Why?
CRA. I swapped my CRAs and my Bs around again. Why do I do that?
I'm sorry. Oh, you mean you reversed A and B?
Yes.
Oh my.
In the equation, let me just see if I put my CRs right around because I
That
chose
is
B.
interesting because you're right. You and I have talked about that before.
I keep doing that and I don't know why.
Okay.
Because my transcript is like the women's dress.
Right.
And now you don't have the picture probably.
You need to start triple checking that then.
I need to do that now.
Oh,
yes.
there's a woman.
Yes. Now you can see the dress patterns on the transcript.
Right.
And the
Yeah,
zigzags
this
almost make me
looks like
think of the
race.
frills. All the round patterns in the transcript.
And you get people?
Yes, the noises, the people, I get animal noises. But it was noisy. The other picture doesn't have noise. I presume because I don't see anything there that can make noise. The dimension, I got the idea of twirling or a round motion. It looks like the person where the dress can be dancing or turning or doing something, or the dress at least is rounds repeating. The colors, weirdly, I got all the colors, but what stood out for me was the idea of darkness and light. As one go into the building, there's light and darkness, where the other picture doesn't have differences.
I see. Okay. Wait,
And that is for that.
That's it. Okay. Well, that's fine. You got to work on reversing it, because I'm not changing it. You and I had that conversation. I just can't. And it's funny you did it again. You really should watch yourself when you get.
I just don't learn.
Okay, so what I am going to do here, though, as a group manager, is I'm going to pass. Especially with, it was just only 3. We only had 3 people. Is that right? Well, we had more, but there was passes. Let me just see. Wait. We had 1 pass. Okay, so we had 1 up, 1 yes, 2 yeses, 3 yeses, but one of those yeses is a no. Right? Your yes turns to a no. So it's 2-2. And I don't know. I'm just going to pass. I'm just not big on this. So I'm just passing here. And and I can make a comment. 2 no's and 2 yeses. Okay, so that becomes part of the record too. And there we go. So we just completed that prediction. What I plan on doing now is I have in the server all of the same information. In fact, this is so educational. Let me show you what the server has. I don't have to do it. There's everything that you've put in, for sure, everything is on our server. So that includes your email addresses. That includes your scores. What I will do is put each of you into the webinar workshop group, so that when this is actualized, you will get an email. And then hopefully you'll join me when we do the feedback on this, if you can. And then we'll be able to talk about it. But notice now it's each personal to you, just the way we do it during the regular group meetings. So this was done in this fashion for the real newbies who still seem to have trouble with the protocol a little bit at first. Some of them anyway. Most of them don't. The protocol is, in my opinion, pretty straightforward. Okay, so now, any questions now on that, now that we've done all of that? Sorry, I couldn't figure it out. Oh, that was Patricia. It is me. Okay. Marty, how to check? Okay. Any other questions, comments? Because I'm now about to wrap this up. So at the highest level, the biggest summary I can tell you is this. This graphic goes way back, but to me, it says so much about what ARV is about. It's about you, the psychic you, communicating through 2 different times. So it's mind to mind, but both minds happen to be yours. It's really all of you in the UCC and all of you in the UCC doing precognitive telepathy. All of this is done right at the deepest levels. And even in the examples you've done here, we know we're picking up information from the feedback session. And I'm going to add, and I hate to, but I'm going to add, or the judging session. You've seen enough here to know that it wasn't random. Notice that each of you got your own individual targets. You got good matches. Rank them 4s to 5s. Those say you got good matches, and they were good matches. Now the question is, did you pick that information up from the feedback session or not like you're supposed to from the judging, right? But, okay, so that's just so important to understand. And that's the training, to make sure the entanglements are only from the feedback session. So here's where you put your energy. Here's where you'll light it up. You make it so strong with the intention of connecting here. And that's counterintuitive. That's called retrocausality. They have whole conferences on it. We don't understand how it works, but you can do it. And that's what you train yourself in doing, is this retrocausality, which allows you to pick it up here. So the ARV indeed begins with the feedback session, causing information entanglement with the remote viewing session. Our whole concept of cause and effect is so minimally accurate. Yes, there's cause-effect forward time, but guess what? There's cause-effect backward in time. That's what's going to bring us to a new world. Now, what is all of this happening? It's all happening in, and I don't know what other kind of words to use, because it's a type of communication channel, which ultimately is with this UCC, with this all that is, with the matrix, the deepest level of reality. It's all out there, the eternal now. Okay? So consciousness has this place where all this information is, from all the nows, past, present, future, anywhere. In the physical universe, and I'm going to tell you, I think there's a whole non-physical universe that the UCC has, which includes things that are even outside. We would call it outside of our physical universe. But all of that is in the UCC. The communication that we talk about is with information from the UCC up to conscious moments of your choice. And that happens through the communication channel. You know, why when you're remote viewing do you get information from the feedback nows? Because when you're here, that's your intention. It's kind of amazing that intention can be so powerful. But you know it's powerful. Have you ever realized that when you walk across the street, you intend to walk across the street, and maybe even a busy street, you automatically look both ways and wait for an opening and run across the street? Do you know how much was involved in your being to do that? You certainly don't do it in the intellectual knowing way. It's the communication channel between the UCC and all the stuff going on in your physical body. Your physical body is connected to this communication channel, and it does all this stuff with the nervous system to get you to get across the street. All of that is done with the simple intention. It's time for me to cross. Okay? Same exact thing, really, is happening when you do remote viewing. It comes down to your intention and then learning how to do it better and better. You know, when you first learned how to walk, you didn't do it so well. Now you probably have it mastered. And I think that's what we're talking about doing here. is learning how to open up this communication channel to get the information from the feedback sessions consistently. So I call this learning about your consciousness. All of this is so personal, and your communication channel. And I use the word independence here because all of this is based on how you make your choices in guiding your consciousness. You know, it's you who are guiding all of this, right? You're doing all of this in quiet moments when you're doing your remote viewing, when you're doing your feedback. You know, generally, and there are always exceptions, people like to do this in a quiet, peaceful environment. So it's you who are guiding this. And with that, I just wish us all health, wealth, and wisdom. And I thank you for joining me here. Questions, comments? Okay, maybe we're done. And it was okay. Ernesto, go ahead. Do you turn on your mic? Good.
Hi, Marty. How are you doing? Nice
Hi.
meeting you.
Thank you.
And
Nice
nice meeting
meeting you as
everybody. First of all, thank you for doing this webinar. I'm a complete noob, so this actually cleared up a bunch of concepts that your website actually, talks about. Excuse my ignorance in regards to the process and protocol. My question is, since the way you describe the process, it seems to me that it's very intrinsically individualistic. So why does the guest for the actual event is submitted as part of a group effort? Is there a final objective? Is there a reason of depth of why that is done that way?
Yes, and it was done very purposefully with the idea that imagine if you had a viewer who was 60% accurate, reliably 60% accurate. Now you had a second viewer who was 60% accurate and a third viewer who was 60% accurate historically. Now they, as part of a group or even in their own group of just 3 people, when you now got 2 out of 3 being correct or all 3 being correct, the odds of the overall group prediction being correct goes up from something like 60% with an individual person to 75% because of just the way statistics work.
I got you. So it's a matter of a self-reinforced loop that actually gets rid of any variability per individual.
That was right. That was the idea. But I have to tell you that getting viewers who don't go into slumps is now what we're paying attention to. We are looking for viewers who are not only up at the, say, 65% level, but are reliably there. In other words, their protocol, their internal work is such that I can count on them. They never get down, say, below 50% on the last 25 predictions. I have to get a reliability measure, and that's what we're working on right now.
Now, how real is that slump? Because some of the literature that I've read of, recently, or maybe not recently, but disclosed papers by the CIA actually talked about that slump being real. And at some point, they just recommend for you to keep practicing so you can get out of that slump.
Exactly. Almost everybody goes through a slump. And, you know, some people have beginner's luck, and then they go through a slump after a few good hits. Other people start out low, they start doing well, and then they go into it. It's like psychologically, there's something which I think the subconscious is trying to teach you. But that's the way I'm trying to get better and better at all this myself. So you're hearing my opinion. Each person has to come up with what they believe themselves. But do trust your subconscious and listen to it. And when you get something like a displacement, really take the point of view that it was done on purpose. And what is your sub trying to tell you? And look around, and it's probably trying to point to something that'll make you a better ARVer.
Great,
So,
thank you. Thank you, Marty.
good, and thank you, Ernesto. Enjoy your new adventure here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anybody else? Question? Gold Gallagher? Yes, I know Joe very well. In fact, we've done workshop together. And yeah, so I like Joe very much. He tends to put a lot of this in the context of PK. He would almost say the remote viewer is PKing the feedbacker. And you should know other people somehow say that they're causing their own hit. So there are different perspectives to this. But anyway, Joe, his focus is on psychokinesis. Okay, it looks like we're done. I will end this now, and I thank you all for joining me, and all of you keep precogging.